And the topic is really just how to get our kids interested. It relates to how to get them motivated. Of course, it's to do with also love of learning, discovering their passion. How do we, as parents, um, achieve this result? And in some ways, what sparked my wish to speak to this topic is someone especially came into the group and said she wanted to create curiosity in her child, or many people actually in the answers to the questions coming into the group have used that kind of language. How do we create in another being motivation or interest, or how do we make that happen? And the answer is that I don't think we can. I mean, in many ways, I feel like that's a misunderstanding with many parents, that it's our responsibility somehow to lead on motivation or on love of learning, or for us to still be leading to try and get them to take up interest, for us to need to be responsible for protecting things that they're good at, that they've been doing, and then when they hit their teenage years, there's often so much change. I remember that change in my own teenage years. Things that I was interested in before I was teenage, many of them fell off a cliff when I became teenage, and I got interested in all kinds of other things. Probably that things that my parents also weren't that thrilled about, things that I gave up. So yeah, that's one major thing just to say, is that I don't think it's a good approach to feel like it's your responsibility or our responsibility to perpetuate our children's interests, to protect their passions, to kind of keep them going. And I wanted to start in a way this morning with a joke. I mean, it's not a joke, it's profound for me, but it is also a joke in a way. I was watching a long time ago, I was watching a home ed graduate kind of thing, someone who'd home educated all of his life, and he was a musician. I can't remember where I was watching him. He's like had really long, kind of curly, dark hair. Very good-looking young man, maybe in his mid-20s or 30s or something. He was talking about his experience of home educating, and he said, as a kind of throwaway remark, really, that the one thing we know of that kills off our natural love of learning, and in a way, yeah, it's good to just reflect on how children are born. Children are born with the capacity to learn language, the capacity to learn how to crawl and how to move around, knowing to even, go to the mother's breast in the first minute of existence to feed. We can see this in the animal kingdom as well, just innate wisdom and knowledge, and also this incredible capacity to learn without instruction. So yeah, that's the context for this joke, because yeah, this guy said, the one thing we know of, the only thing we know of that is guaranteed to kill off our love of learning is education. I don't know if I've labored that too much, but to me that really hit home. It was funny. It's it is a throwaway remark, but it's also like, wow, if you listen to Ken Robinson, there is some truth in that we've created systems, schooling systems, which I would also extend to parenting culture and just generally our culture, which are managing to like pour water on these the natural love of learning. Like we can't create curiosity. It just is. Like every single baby born is curious. Every single being born is curious. But of course I understand the parents' perspective of like, how do I encourage curiosity? And yeah, we're going to get into that. I'm not taking an extreme of like you don't do anything. But yeah, it's good to reset to looking at your children, especially if they're teenage, seem extremely lazy, seem extremely disinterested in most things that you might like them to be interested in, or just not interested in anything, and to feel like it's your job to do something about it. And in some ways, of course you can contribute there, but yeah, let me get into it. But yeah, I thought that was really funny that the one thing that we've discovered that kills off the love of learning is education, and it's just a powerful blast on like the systems we've set up and also how we're parenting. So yeah, it's a joke, but it's also, I think, quite profound. So yeah, the ways that we've managed to produce teenagers that aren't naturally interested, aren't naturally motivated, is through too much pressure, too much coercion, crowding them with demands. I don't just mean, I'm not having a go at us as parents, but can be demanding. If you feel like that resonates for you, great, that's a good thing to recognize. But demands like, sometimes I look at the school day. I've been into a few private schools. I've taught a few private school kids, and I think really just in every institution, the day is just booked up. I mean, especially in private schools, it's really pronounced. But the school day is just completely booked up. And then as parents, of course, we can be adding on tons of activities after the school day. But it really struck me with some of these institutions I went into. I was like, wow, there is no trust in this system to leave the kids alone for a second. That's part of the problem. It's just that there is a sense of like, well, what would they do if we left them for an hour or two without the structure of relentless lessons? And one private school student I taught, I was trying to encourage him to develop his own love of maths and to do like a daily practice of just practicing his maths. And he just didn't have any time. There was no time in the day. In the end, he was at a boarding school. In the end, he got up at 6 in the morning just to find 20 minutes where he could do his own thing. The rest was all booked up for him. So yeah, these kind of systems, very high pressure, very coercive, and crowded time, oppressive for our kids. They're oppressive to have to jump through all these hoops. We know all of this, and also the lack of choice. Not offering up choice in the first instance, I would say, with schooling. This would be my big step forward for our schooling systems, is that there is a huge opening to choice for children in what they want to learn. I've got a student at the moment he's studying Othello, absolutely loathes it. But no one's asked him if he wants to study that. So that's the root of the problem in some ways, can be. The solution for us as parents, the solution to being in these systems, we can't change the system necessarily, the education system. We can change how we parent, which is why we have Young Fire. This is why I'm here. This is what I want for us, and this is what I want for myself. This is what I want for this community and for the world, is to start, as many people are also contributing to this movement, giving our kids back the time, giving them back the space, giving them freedoms, trusting them to be, like, for example, in a progressive, future-looking school system, to have time in the day where they're not directed by us. They don't have, where they're not just going from one lesson to it. There's a reason why it's like that. The bell goes, you got 5 minutes, because the systems don't trust the students for all hell to break loose if they're not marshaled through the day. So giving the time, giving the space, giving the freedom and the empowerment that's built in there, trusting them, giving the responsibility. So that's one step. But then, of course, as parents, if we want our children to be interested, we want them to learn stuff, we want them to discover their passion, we can't just do that. We can't just leave them alone, back off. I mean, I do think these are great first steps if you feel like you're in the way. Many parents are. But then, there's also the skillful line that we can find. It's a dance. It's a dance between leading and giving time and space, like allowing them to self-lead and also knowing how to support. So other progressive schooling systems often talk about facilitating, not teaching, facilitators. Being a facilitator, and as a parent, that's basically what you are. Good parenting starts to look like you're facilitating. You've got to use your skillful means, whichever way that looks. You've got to try and still contribute to your teens. I'm speaking specifically about teens now. It might be relevant for younger years as well. But yeah, we talked about strewing in this group, this brilliant word strewing, which one of you amazing mums taught me. leaving stuff around for home educating children, especially, or for any children that might be of interest to them. Leave a book open, leave an article here, or whatever it might be, stick something up on the fridge, and if it piques their interest, then you'll have the follow through on, like, well, wow, if you're interested in that, we could go and see that play, or we could go and we can, you're ready to go with those things. So if you see things that you think they might be interested in, there are very skillful ways of still introducing that to them without just bowling up to them and saying, hey, I think you should do this, and getting the inevitable rejection. So, recognizing pushback, we have to recognize what's not working for us. So, if you're getting terrible results by being too in your kids' faces and just suggesting too much, or is you making these, that's a typical scenario that there's a parent just constantly coming up with ideas, constantly coming up with solutions, constant suggestions, and there's a child just becoming more and more tired, more and more jaded, and less open to anything that we have to offer them. And I mean, this is an easy trap to fall into. It sounds ridiculous, but so many of us are in that position. I mean, like, I think it probably comes up for all parents, from time to time, where we suggest something. Like for us, we're excited about a Montessori school in Cardiff for our children's next step, and they're dead against it because they know that we want that for them, and we haven't really taken the time to give them the context, to tell them the timing, to really also honor and respect the fact that that's also in fact it is their future, not ours. And so we went in a bit hard there. Even just our excitement and our enthusiasm was really off-putting to them. They're like 7 and 8, so this is magnified by the time your kids are 13, 14 and upwards. So we've got to recognize pushback as a very valuable form of communication. That's all it is. That's all. Any anger outburst or anything from our kids, it's all communication, however irrational it might be, and however driven by a blindness or a lack of logic or something, or just an impetuousness in the teenage years. Still there's something there which can be learnt by the skillful parent, and respected. All rebellion, as I've said before, here is just a desire for greater autonomy. as I see it in the family unit, and just in the world. Communication and anger for parents. It's one of the new parents in the group brought up anger, and communication has also come up, which can sometimes mean anger. So getting angry with our kids, of course, it comes up for all of us. We're not going to escape anger. No one is ever going to live on this flat line where everything's totally hunky-dory and we don't feel the full range of human emotions. So anger's going to come up, and it's good to recognize that it does, and to know that about ourselves, and that it's going to keep coming up. But it's what we do with it when it does come up. So one thing that I think is powerful for parents is to release our attachments to certain outcomes. If we find that for example, the kids go to Cardiff Montessori, or that they have to get a certain grades or whatever, otherwise it's too much for us to bear, the idea that they might not, or they have to any lines that we draw, any outcomes that we draw which aren't really in our control. We have to release those attachments, and we need to empathize with our teens about what they want and where they're coming from. We need to start really getting on an even level and discussing things openly with them, hearing their perspective, and releasing our own attachment to what we think must happen. That kind of thing for a teen, that is a wall that is going to be pulled down in time by basically all teens. You've got to respect teenagers. Wow, it doesn't matter if they're the shy type or the outwardly rebellious type. Most teens will come at you if you set up, if you set up things that are like predetermined, where it's going to be like that. wow, that's very provocative for the teenage spirit. However hammered they might have been by our systems, still the human spirit is strong, which I love. And that's why this group is called Young Fire, because I honor and respect that in teenagers and in all beings, that we are so resilient like that. My gosh, like our drive and our power and our quest for like justice and truth is just totally enduring in all beings. So just one thing about communication. I've said this so many times, but for anyone who is new, that the best book I know on communication is called How to Talk So Your Kids Will Listen and Listen So Your Kids Will Talk. There is so much wisdom just in that title. How to talk so your kids will listen and listen so your kids will talk. And there's another one for teens. How to talk so your teens will listen and listen so your teens will talk. Great books on communication. Just the tools in there were so new to me, were so challenging for me, but so clear, so clearly laid out. So that's a little tip for anyone on communication. And yeah, I've mentioned this last time. It is great to have a tool, some kind of tool for our reactivity. It's going to come up. It's come up many times before, and how we fly off or how we launch into the old program in response to button pressing from our expert children. All children are expert button pressers. And by the way, they are pressing our buttons because they're educating us. I've always seen young people as children as the most phenomenal force for education. And whenever I see a parent getting a workout, I can always see both sides. I can always see, wow, what the child is showing that parent about what they could change, what they could open up to, how they could do things better. I'll tell one more story. I had a friend at school. This friend he was the drummer in a band that I was in, and he was just the dirtiest guy. The way we were in formal like school uniform, really formal school uniform, and he was just filthy dirty. Like he'd go to the art school, he'd just get covered in like plaster from just covered in like all the paint and everything. His school uniform was just trashed, and he's the only guy I ever met who used to ash on his jeans when we were smoking, whatever. He'd ash on his jeans and just rub it in, and I'm telling this story just because I then met his parents, and it all fell into place when I met his parents, why this guy was like this. And his parents, I could see, I could tell by their house, all they wanted was a nicely presented son. They just wanted a nice son who they could show around their friends and all that kind of thing. And this guy, talk about rebellion. And again, yeah, to me that's extremely funny, but it's also it's powerful for us as parents to see, wow, where the one thing we want, the thing we're really pushing for, the thing that's non-negotiable, that's the thing that your kids are going to refuse you. So yeah, I think they're phenomenal educators. It's exactly the education we need, and that's a great way to approach parenting, to take this incredible challenge. Wow, it's a challenging role. And so I'm not humoring that or mocking any sort of hardships we're going through, but our kids are here to educate us. Living this closely together in a family unit, it's extremely challenging. We don't see evidence of people in the world being able to live together that closely. Families just are like that. They're just in that unit together, It's hard to live with people. We've all had experiences of that. At people outside our family, and so of course it's hard inside our family as well. But take it as an education. It is, the openness just to go, we're all in this together. I'm not more right than my kids. We're all in this together, and just to have the humility to accept that we may not be right about everything, and that they may be right about things that we currently think they're wrong about. So just to be open and humble is a very good disposition as well. And yeah, so having a tool for reactivity, having a practice, whatever it is, in these times as well, if it is hard, give yourself some time, give yourself the the time to reflect on how you're parenting, perhaps the time to reflect on how you could look after yourself better. Wow, self-love is a topic I would love to talk about in this group for parents. Just, that is absolutely key to a happy household, to also look after yourself in all of this. Find the ways that you can support yourself. Find your own mentors and teachers who can guide you to navigate your own parenting, to also even outside of parenting, just your own personal well-being. That can get really lost as a mother. I know I'm speaking mostly to mothers in this group. As a mother, it's I don't want to get into the differences between mothers and fathers, but mothers are full devotees. They're just so, fathers are of course as well, but there's something there about getting lost with your own well-being, looking after yourself as a mother, this relentless service. It's like in the airplane. I often think about in the aeroplane, the airplane, where there's, the guidance with the oxygen masks is like, make sure you've got your own mask on before you help your child. I think that's a really powerful metaphor for looking after yourself. You cannot be of service to your full service to your child if you're not well in yourself. And so if that's something for you, and you need more than you're giving yourself, then you know what you need. We actually all have this wisdom built in. We think we don't, but if you gave yourself the time, if we give ourselves the time, we can discover so many things that can then support our well-being. Simple things, just booking in half an hour of just sitting in the sun, meditating, yoga, exercise, going for a coffee, finding a friend who you can speak to about it, reaching out in a Facebook group like this or other Facebook groups for support. Just taking the time, being self-sustainable as a parent as well is going to be really a great move for your family and for your kids. Great. And then trusting, that when we step back, our teens will step forth. This is a big one. I know it's really hard to wind down the wish to lead. Like we started with trying to get them interested, how to get them interested, how to have someone who loves learning. Well, stepping back is a big part of that, and just trusting that if you don't keep marshalling them through their days in any way, then they might take a bit of time. There's often a bit of recovery time. So that's where the trust kicks in. It doesn't come immediately. You have to be patient. We have to be patient, and just trust that they will fill that void. And also simultaneously with that, we're not leaving them in a void. We're there for them. We're showing them that it's their life now. They're responsible for it. We're handing over, but we're still there in the ways that they want us to be there. The communication, we hope, is still open, where they could come to us and say, actually, like, I don't know what I don't know what to do with my time. I'm spending all my time on my phone. I don't know what to do. Like, what should I be doing? We need that bridge of communication to be there, so that then we can contribute with them if they don't know how to self-lead, if they're struggling for the confidence to do that. And we also know we can put other people in place, mentors, other people in the community, older peers of theirs, find people for them who might be the right fit to guide them in self-direction, even just very directly with career development or with interests like that, like what to do with my life. Well, internships and that kind of thing, apprenticeships, going out and like actually finding the people who are role modeling that kind of lifestyle and that sort of work, and who are the people that they admire, and who could you as a parent skillfully buddy them up with so that they've got that inspiration and support as well.